This morning I woke up to Judge Manning playing on my TV, which made me really happy. Then the defense attorney started talking, and it hurt my brain. Math is hard. Math is even harder when you try and make math do things math isn't supposed to do.
All right, this is position 1, Bostic Damon Cassette, 23 CP 218487, 167 days without indictment there. Trafficking in illegal drugs, VGCSA, possession of controlled substance in Schedule 1 or 2, simple battery, family violence, and possession of drug-related objects.
Well, that doesn't tell us very much, and a quick Google says this guy's got quite a backstory, so let's do what we always do and dig into the backstory.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm not sure if you can see me. Shannon Guest on behalf of Mr. Costit.
All right, I was just calling out the case. 23 CP 218487, Damon Cosset, 118 days without indictment, trafficking in illegal drugs. That's 39 grams of meth and fentanyl, allegedly. BGCSA, possession of Schedule 1 or 2 with intent to distribute, simple battery, family violence, possession of drug-related objects. Pre-trial.
In regards to Mr. Cosset, 32 cycles, CWAC in 2000, 2 felonies, 3 arrests for probation violation, a simple assault, family violence in 21, prior harassing phone calls, 1 arrest in Florida, nothing further.
All right, go ahead, Ms. Guest.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Costic is 54 years old. He has been living in the Atlanta area, in Georgia, for the past few years. Mr. Costic is a veteran, Your Honor. He had served some time in the Air Force. He did complete all years of high school, Your Honor, and prior to his arrest, he did have a stable job, which after speaking to Mr. Costic, he believes that he can hopefully return to. I did have the opportunity to get a good address for him. So he does have a residence to stay in to help get on his feet while he waits for his case to get indicted. So, Your Honor, we would be asking that a reasonable bond be set for Mr. Costin, as he can not financially make this bond amount. We would ask that you consider potentially cutting the bond at a minimum in half to at least $50,000 to allow his families to possibly go through a bonding company to make that bond. We have been trying to get Mr. Costit in connection with some programs, but in order to have those of use to him, he would have to be out of custody, and we have been having he has been having issues with making that bond amount, Your Honor. So we would ask that the court consider a hefty reduction in Mr. Costas' bond amount.
Where do you have an address where he'll be living?
Yes, Your Honor, we do. I do have an address where he would be living if, upon his release.
Is it Fulton County?
No, Your Honor, it is in Cumming, Georgia.
Okay, all right. What says the state?
The state doesn't have an objection, doesn't have any issue with halving the bond. In fact, the state is fine with no less than $40,000. The state is concerned with, even though it is a misdemeanor charge, a danger to the victim, considering the fact that they've had a 12-year relationship. So there's a concern about intimidation of witnesses given the allegations, and there is some family violence history as well. The state's also concerned with the amount of drugs that are involved in this case, but the state is fine with no less than $40,000. Just ask for no contact or the continuation of no violent contact with Osama, Greenwich, and no drugs.
All right. No drugs unless prescribed, no alcohol, no weapons. Stay away from 575 Holcomb Bridge Road. No further contact with ASALMA Greenwich, GRINNAGE. You can have ankle monitor paid for by the county with a 24-hour curfew. Court, lawyer, medical, employment, as long as you supply the name of your employer, proof of employment, schedule, and the exact location you will be working. You also have to stay out of Fulton County, sir, unless you're here for court or to see your lawyer. Do not come back to Fulton County for any reason except court and see your lawyer. And make sure you come back to Fulton County for those 2 reasons. I got $20,000. $19,000, $1,000, and UJR jail. $20,000, $19,000, $1,000, and UJR jail. Best of luck to you, sir.
Well, that didn't tell us a lot, except he's got quite a criminal history. I also, in looking him up, found that he is on the you-know-what offender registry as of September 2000 with 8 counts of child, you-know-what, estation. So, he's a winner.
Officer, if you raise your right hand, you swear firm testimony you're about to give is the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, state and spell your name for the court reporter.
Officer Javon Gordon. First name Javon, JAY''VON. Last name Gordon, GORDON.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Scott.
All right, and where are you employed?
I'm employed with the Roswell Police Department.
All right, and how long have you been employed in that capacity?
2 years, 10 months.
All right, and are you post-certified?
Yes, sir, I am.
All right, and if you could just tell us, well, were you employed on May 13th, 2023?
Yes, sir.
All right, and could you tell us what you were doing on that day?
I was working as a patrol officer, and I was dispatched to 575 Holcomb Bridge Road, which is the La Quinta Hotel, in reference to a female calling our Roswell dispatch, requesting an officer, and then hanging up.
And there was no mention as to what she requested an officer for?
No, sir.
Okay. And what did you do when you arrived to that La Quinta Hotel?
When I arrived, I asked the front desk clerk who was working at the front desk, they heard any disturbance in the hotel or anything like that. They said no, and I asked them, could I walk around the hotel in order to try to locate the female?
And did they allow you to?
Yes, they said yes. And so as I entered the first hallway of the hotel to my left, I observed a male pushing his way into a hotel room, which was identified as room 111.
Was he able to make entry?
Yes, he was able to make entry, and I followed behind him to the hotel room. He didn't see me. Once he was inside the room, I heard a female saying, "You slapped me in my face." Once I heard that, I started banging on the hotel room to get them to answer the door and come out.
What did they say when they came out?
Once they opened the door, Miss, I'm a butcher her name, Osama Greenwich, she came out. She stated that later identified as Mr. Cassette, had slapped her in her face and that he had drugs inside of his truck.
Was she ever separated?
Yeah, so after Mr. Cassette's and her information was given over the radio, it was found that Mr. Cassette had a warrant out of Florida for burglary. At that time, he was placed in handcuffs and brought outside to my patrol car to separate them. Another officer stayed inside to speak with Miss Greenwich while I stayed outside with Mr. Cassette. That officer spoke with Miss Greenwich, and then we switched, and I went inside and spoke with Miss Greenwich.
What did she say to you?
Once I got back inside the hotel room, I asked her to tell me the events that happened. She said she was inside the hotel room. The argument was over Mr. Cassette going through her cell phone. They got into an argument. He held her down and punched her a couple times in her rib cage. And in order to defend herself, she covered her face, reached up and grabbed his shirt collar and pulled him down. That's where he sustained a scratch on his face. Once they got up, Mr. Cassette left the hotel room, which is when I observed him. And then when he came back in, he slapped her in her face. And she also told me again that he had drugs inside of his truck that was parked outside.
Did she have any visible injuries?
Yes, she had a marking on her face.
Did she say how she got that mark?
Yes, from him hitting her in the face. Not from the slap. This was from the previous tussling.
What did she say about where the drugs were located?
She said that they were in his truck. It was parked right outside their hotel room window. I pulled the curtain back to the hotel room, clearly observed a work truck that said the word Hussman on it. When speaking with Mr. Cassette, he said that he worked for Hussman, and he had a Hussman T-shirt on at the time of the incident. She said that the drugs were laying right on the center console under a glove. I asked her how she knew that drugs were inside the truck. She said that Mr. Cassette had told her. I asked her, why did he tell her that? He said he was scared because officers were outside the La Quinta on a previous incident. And when we were out there, he was scared, left the drugs inside of the truck, and came inside to the hotel room.
Did you have an opportunity to view the vehicle?
Yes. So after I got done talking to her, I immediately went outside, went to the truck, flashed my flashlight inside the truck, and clearly observed a plastic baggie with a clear substance inside it on the center console under a glove.
What did you do after you saw the substance?
I asked for a K9 unit to arrive on scene to do an open air sniff of the car.
And
around the car.
did an officer and who arrived to perform that?
Yes, K9 handler McDonald arrived a short time later.
What happened?
He ran the dog around the truck, and he advised me that the dog had a positive alert on the vehicle. And at that time, I called for a tow truck to take the truck back to our police department so I could obtain a search warrant.
Did you obtain a search warrant?
Yes, I obtained a search warrant.
And when was that signed?
Give me 1 second. Sorry. At 4:44 a.m.
What happened after you got the search warrant?
After I obtained the search warrant, a search was conducted of the vehicle, finding it was 39 grams of methamphetamine, which it was field tested, and it showed a positive alert for methamphetamine and fentanyl. 6.2 grams of marijuana, 2 methamphetamine pipes, and a syringe with a brown substance inside.
Did you field test the marijuana?
I did not. No, sir.
And you said that 39 grams tested for both
Yes,
methamphetamine and fentanyl?
Yes, it tested positive for both methamphetamine and fentanyl.
Did you have an opportunity to speak with the defendant in this case?
Yes. Before or after the search warrant? I'm sorry.
Before.
Before, yes.
Did he say anything about, what did you ask him about striking?
Yes, he denied that the altercation turned physical.
Did you speak with him about drugs?
I Mirandized him, and at that point, he refused to continue speaking with officers without his lawyer.
And you said the truck had a Hussman logo on it?
Yes, sir.
And as did his clothing?
Yes, sir.
And you did also state he worked for Hussman?
Yes, he told me that he worked for Hussman.
And so if you could just tell me how the parking lot is in relation to the hotel room.
Okay, yeah, so there is the hotel sits in the parking lot, the front parking lot and a rear parking lot. Their hotel room was on the rear side. So the truck was parked on the rear side, backed in right in front of their hotel room window. So you would pull the curtain back, and it was the sidewalk to walk the walking path to the hotel, and then right in front of that was the truck.
And what did specifically did Miss Greenwich say about the location of that truck?
She said it was parked right outside.
And do you recognize anyone in the courtroom today that you interacted with on May 13, 2020?
Stan, if you'd like.
Yes.
Yes, I recognize Mr. Cassette.
All right. And where is he? What is he wearing and where is he located?
He's sitting to my left. He is wearing a orange Fulton County jumpsuit and a medical face mask.
I would just like the record to reflect that Officer Gordon did identify the defendant.
All right, noted.
Did you take out the warrants on this case?
Yes, sir, I did.
And the warrants for trafficking were on what basis?
Because it was over 28 grams of methamphetamine.
And the possession of Schedule 1 or 2, what drug was that for?
The fentanyl.
Was there also over 28 grams of fentanyl?
Yes, sir, it was.
And were the warrants for simple battery family violence or simple battery?
Temporary family violence.
Could you just explain the basis of the family violence?
Yes, the basis or what? How I got to the basis?
Yes,
Okay.
like that.
Mr. Cassette told me that him and Miss Greenwich were together for 12 years. And after doing a search of his criminal history on one of our police databases, it was found that he was arrested for battery, family violence against Miss Greenwich in the past.
Did either of them mention anything about residing at the hotel room together?
Yes, he said that he had just brought her there to stay with him.
How long?
He didn't say how long, but he said that he was staying there and he picked her up to come stay there with him.
Are you aware of if they have any children together?
They do not. She does have a daughter that was in the hotel room at the time of the incident that was sleeping, but they're not. They don't have any biological children together.
Other than the drugs, was there anything else found in the motor vehicle?
Just the methamphetamine pipes.
Okay.
That was it.
And was that the basis for the drug-related objects?
Yes, sir.
And going back before you got the search warrant, you said you looked inside the Hussman vehicle.
Yes, sir.
And you could see what specifically could you see when you looked inside on the dash?
It was on the center console. It's a black and blue work glove. It was laying on halfway covering a plastic baggie that had a clear crystal-like substance inside.
Given your experience in law enforcement, did it appear to be anything? Well, what did that crystal?
Yes, with my knowledge, training, experience, it appeared to be methamphetamine.
Did Ms. Greenwich mention what kind of drugs?
She said methamphetamine.
I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, Cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer, you said how many grams in total between meth and fentanyl?
It was 39 grams.
And how many grams of meth did you say there were?
It was 39 grams. The 39 grams tested positive for both methamphetamine and fentanyl.
But you just testified that there's 28 grams of meth and 28 grams of fentanyl.
I said it was over 28 grams.
Nonetheless, you said it was over 28 grams of fentanyl and over 28 grams of methamphetamine. Together, that's exceeds the total of 39 grams. That's approximately 58 grams in total between exceeding 38 grams of meth and exceeding 38 grams of fentanyl.
So you're saying that I said that it was two separate drugs. I'm saying the 39 grams in total,
right,
tested positive for both methamphetamine and fentanyl.
Okay, and you also said there was 28 grams for meth that you were able to find in the vehicle.
Is that a question?
It is. Did you say that there was an excess of 28 grams of methamphetamine?
Yes, there's over 28 grams of tested methamphetamine inside the vehicle.
And is there over 28 grams of tested fentanyl in the vehicle?
Yes.
What is 28 plus 28?
So I'm not saying that there was two separate.
this. I think it's clear from
Yeah.
ask and answer that he's saying.
Your Honor, it's
both.
not asked and answer. He's making the claim that in total, it somehow bifurcates into a total of both meth and methamphetamine, both fentanyl and methamphetamine. You can't claim that there's approximately 60 grams of meth and fentanyl and then claim there's an excess of 30 grams of meth, in excess of 30 grams of fentanyl. There's some discrepancy with what drug was what and what amount. And the only testing done was a field test. Officer, were the drugs sent to the
Was it
to a
like-
laboratory?
One pile of drugs,
Yes,
one pile of drugs that weighed,
39 grams.
And you can't ascertain which one was, how much of the amount was fentanyl and how much of the amount was methamphetamine, correct?
No, I cannot. I just tested a sample of the 39 grams and it tested positive for both.
And were those
Methamphetamine,
drugs
fentanyl.
ever sent to the laboratory?
No, they were not. Not yet. No, sir.
So there is no official GBI drug lab result, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. The field tests, are they always 100% accurate?
I'm not an expert on field testing, so I can't say if they're all 100% accurate.
Okay. So, how did you enter into the vehicle?
Through the door, like the
Was it locked?
driver door.
Was it locked?
Yes, I obtained the keys
From whom?
inside the hotel room.
The keys to the vehicle was inside the hotel room?
Yes, sir.
Was it it was not on the body of Miss Gringe?
On her person?
Correct.
No, sir. Not from my knowledge, no.
And this is all on body camera footage, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in the body cam footage, it will show that the keys to the vehicle were in the hotel and not on Miss Greenwich's persons, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I don't think I obtained the keys. Another officer, I believe, brought them to me, Officer Salad.
So you didn't grab the keys.
I did not personally know
So how do you know that the keys were in the hotel room and not on Miss Greenwich's body?
because I told her to go get the keys from inside the hotel room
How did you know they were inside the hotel room?
because he had nothing else on his person.
Why would you assume they'd be in the hotel room and not on her?
I didn't assume that they were on her. I just assumed that they would be in the room where both of them were staying.
And you checked the room.
Did I check the room? No.
You also mentioned that Mr. Cossett picked up and brought Miss Greenwich to the hotel in that vehicle, correct?
Yes, sir.
And yet Miss Greenwich knew exactly where the drugs were, despite, let me rephrase that. Miss Greenwich was in the vehicle before you responded to the scene, correct?
Yes, she was picked up in the vehicle. I did not witness her inside the vehicle.
Sure. And then she told you where the drugs were located precisely,
Yes, she did.
based on what Mr. Cossett told her.
No, she said that Mr. Cossett told her that drugs were inside the vehicle. And then she went outside and looked inside the vehicle.
When did she go outside if she was being slapped?
I'm sorry?
At what point did she go to the vehicle if she was being slapped pursuant to?
This was a break in their physical or verbal altercation.
So they had a verbal altercation. He tells her there are drugs in the vehicle. They time out, pause. She goes to the vehicle, checks for the drugs, comes back, and they resume their altercation.
No, I did not.
Probably would object to that question because I don't believe that's exactly his testimony.
It's just the
as far
temporal
as-
timeline that the officer testified to, that there was a break in their verbal altercation. She went out to look for drugs based on what Mr. Cossett told her, Cassette told her, and then they resumed fighting.
all right, we'll let him, if you can answer it, sir, you can answer it, if you have firsthand knowledge of it.
Yeah, so I was the officer who responded to the initial incident that she said that scared Mr. Cassette. And that was earlier in the night. She said that when Mr. Cassette got scared, he came inside, told her that the police were outside and that drugs were in the car. And at that point, she said she went outside and looked inside the vehicle, saw the drugs were right there, and then came back inside. And that's when all their altercation happened. So it was not a altercation, a break in her going outside, looking for the drugs, coming back in, and then resuming the altercation.
Ms. Greenidge told you that she was punched or hit in the side, correct?
Correct.
Did you witness any injuries on the ribs or the side of her body?
I did not. Another officer said they did, but I can't testify to what that officer saw.
Did that officer write a report?
No, sir.
Okay. I apologize, you might have answered this, but originally you were informed that it was a verbal altercation.
From who? No, sir.
Miss Greenidge.
No, sir.
Sorry, I just need to check that, the warrant real quick.
Okay.
It says in your warrant, halfway through, once you made contact, it says while in the doorway. Actually, Your Honor, do I need to show the witness the warrant?
Do you have a copy of the warrant? Sure, you can if you.
I have a copy in my incident report.
No, you do?
My incident report, not the warrant.
Oh, okay. Sure, if you want him to.
Officer, do you mind reading that underlined sentence in your warrant?
Yes, it says while still in the doorway, Greenwich then advised that the altercation with Cassette was only verbal.
So you went in, you made contact. The alleged victim said it was only verbal altercation, then told you the exact precise location of the drugs, and then mentioned she got slapped and hit, yet you found no injuries on the side, and whatever injuries you did see, you just testified that it was from an earlier altercation.
No, so I'll read two sentences before the line you underline. I'll read it again. In my warrant, it says Greenwich initially advised that Cassette slapped her in the face. Cassette did not make any physical contact with Miss Greenwich. While still in the doorway, Greenwich then advised that the altercation with Cassette was only verbal. So she initially told me that she was slapped in the face.
She told you it was slapped, then she told you it was verbal, then she told you where the drugs are. So is it, but yet you found no injuries, and whatever injuries you did found weren't fresh and from a prior altercation, correct?
Now, I found markings on Mr. Greenwich and Mr. Cassette. And from with my knowledge, training experience in the domestics that I've investigated, the victim usually doesn't want to speak while they're in the presence of the offender, which that was the case when she denied, when she stated that it was only verbal. So, which is why Mr. Cassette was handcuffed, taken outside, not only for that, but also for his warrant.
Right.
So he was not, that way we could speak with her separately and get her story. And at that point, she advised what I testified to.
Cheers. So she did not testify to being physically struck in the presence of Mr. Cassette, but she did tell you where the drugs were in the presence of Mr. Cassette. Correct?
So, like I said in the warrant, she initially said that she was slapped in the face,
Right.
and that drugs were inside of his car,
Right.
when she opened the door. And while still in that doorway, while Mr. Cassette was sitting very close to her, she said nothing happened.
Right. But still, to your point, she didn't tell you about any physical altercation in front of Mr. Cassette. She only told you about the location of the drugs in the presence of Mr. Cassette.
No, she told me that she was slapped in the face by Mr. Cassette in his presence while he was sitting in the hotel room, still in the doorway.
But even though in your warrant it says it was a verbal only altercation.
Yes, I said she initially said that she was slapped in the face and that drugs were inside of his truck. And then she advised that the altercation was only verbal while still in the doorway.
Sure. Did you observe any markings on her face resembling a slap or markings of a slap?
Not from a slap, but it was a scratch.
Did you do any testing under the fingernails? Did you?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. So she told you she was struck on the side. You saw no injuries. Yet she hold on, let me rephrase that. She claimed to be had hit. Wow, I can't speak. She claimed to have been hit in the side, yet you observed no injuries. And the
I'm sorry, to her rib cage.
to her rib cage.
I did not,
Yeah.
no,
Okay.
no.
You did not, okay. And she had claimed to have been slapped, yet you only saw a scratch on her face, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you don't know who had the keys or where they came from when you entered into the vehicle?
No, sir.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, anything else on direct?
Just a few. You did get a warrant. You testified you got a warrant to get into that vehicle. Is that right?
Yes, I had a search warrant to get into the vehicle.
And so the victim initially stated she was slapped.
Yes.
Then gets slightly recanted and in front of the defendant, and then later when she was separated from the defendant, gave you the full story.
Yes. So when I initially got there, before I made contact with any of them, I heard her on the other side of the room say, "You slapped me in my face." I then knocked on the door to make contact with them. She came out, said that she had been slapped in the face and that drugs were inside of his truck. While we're still standing in the doorway, she then said, while she was looking at him, he was sitting very close to her. She said nothing happened. Then we found out he had the warrant. They were separated. She told another officer the story. Officer came out, said that she had said some things. Then I went back inside to speak with her, and she gave me the full story.
And you said in your experience, you've had victims do that before when they're in the presence of their aggressor.
Yes.
I have no further questions from this witness. Your Honor.
Anything else, Mr. Cashman?
Just a few. Officer, when you responded, did Miss, I can't remember her name, Grenage, did she appear to be under the influence
Drugs? No.
of anything?
No, neither one appeared to be under the influence of any drug.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, stay safe out there, officer.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead with the argument. Mr. Cashman?
Sure, Your Honor. Your Honor, based on the testimony of the officer, there seems to be some inconsistency we understand that there is 39 grams of some substance. Is it a combination of what? We exactly don't know. The field test just hit positive. And again, we don't know about the scientific accuracy of said field tests. They were not sent to GBI for any type of drug testing.
Actually, we do know the accuracy of those tests because the National Forensic Science Technology Center, as a part of the Field Investigation Drug Officer Program, conducted a very extensive test on these tests. And what they basically determined is there's issues when there is very small amounts, like residue. There can be false positives. They also said that, eventually, if you need to, you should double check and verify any results. But when there's large quantities, there really isn't a lot of false positives or tests like that. And for the main drugs like this, there didn't show any false positives. It was mostly prescription medications that were having false positives in very small quantities.
More importantly, half of the injuries the complaining witness complained of don't seem to reflect, rather, the injuries viewed or not viewed don't seem to reflect what she told the officers. More importantly, there seems to be some disconnect between how the drugs got there. Miss Grenage knows exactly where they were despite being transported in the vehicle, and for whatever time they've been in that hotel room, nothing in the testimony points that the drugs were actually possessed by my client, nor that he placed them there, outside of a hearsay statement that she was told by my client that the drugs were there and that he was worried. Nonetheless, again, there seems to be issues with the drugs, quantity of what exactly we're uncertain. It's just hitting positive for meth and fentanyl, and the field tests, again, are not scientifically conclusive.
All right, go ahead, Mr.
Your Honor, for this probable cause hearing, I think it's sufficient that the drugs have been field tested and have displayed both attributes of methamphetamine and fentanyl. It could be that they're a mixture. I don't want to opine later on as to what the drug test may show, but I think the testimony that the field test demonstrates that the drugs were positive for both of those substances would be sufficient. The state would argue be sufficient for them being charged in the alternative for both. But I think that's clear for that. As far as the witness did state where that she believed the drugs were in the vehicle, and that was corroborated by the officer going and seeing drugs in that location. The defendant was the driver of the vehicle, so there is some constructive possession on that basis as well. And as far as where the keys were located, I don't think that's particularly relevant at this time if we have a search warrant. I think that at that time they had the authorization to get inside the vehicle. So I think that would be something to be better addressed at trial. But there is at least this time a valid search warrant for them to go into that vehicle. As far as the battery charges, the defendant is charged with simple battery, not battery. So there doesn't need to be visible injury for that charge. So I would think that there'd be enough for simple battery family violence, not only on the basis of the officer hearing the statement from the victim that she was slapped and the victim initially stating that she was slapped. And then when separated from the defendant, then also reiterating that. I think that's enough for PC at this time. And also with the officer's testimony that it is frequent in these DV cases, or at least family violence cases, for victims to recant when they're in the presence of their abuser. But the state would just ask for you to find PC for all of these charges, Your Honor.
Your Honor, if I may very briefly, I understand the state's position. The argument is less so about whether they were drugs or not. The argument is about what quantity of the drugs, because it is stated in the law, particularly the amount of each drug, and we cannot ascertain what was what. Therefore, the trafficking as well as the intent to distribute charges cannot just you need to have the exact amounts of each in order to understand if it's a trafficking or a simple possession case. And to say that, well, yeah, they tested positive in a totality of 39 grams, whatever it was, is insufficient for these charges to stick. We don't know what was meth and what was fentanyl. So how do we know what those amounts were to justify the trafficking charges?
All right. So, I mean, I'll find probable cause on all cases, but the trafficking, need to send them to the crime lab. Been since May. Right now there is a $40,000 good bond as of September the 8th.
Prior DUI, a couple of misdemeanors, simple assault, family violence, one arrest in Florida, couple of felonies, old CWAC in 2000, criminal attempted a felony, prior harassing phone calls, couple of arrests for probation violation, nothing further.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Cashland.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Cassette is, I can't do math, 55 years old, slightly residentially challenged. He is required to stay in Fulton County. He has 2 adult children, a son and a daughter, a high school graduate from Northside High School out in Warner Robins. So he is a lifelong Georgia resident. He is a military veteran serving with the Air Force from 1986 until 1995, where he was discharged. He, with waiving sounding, had no convictions since a 2010 issue, and an unindicted pending case in Houston County, also unfortunately for drugs. Other than that, Your Honor, based on Mr. Cassette's lengthy residency here in Georgia, as well as his having 2 adult children and eventually at some point maybe grandchildren, strong community ties, not a threat to flee the court's jurisdiction, we request that bond not to exceed $10,000 in aggregate.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Scott,
Your Honor, the state would ask for no less than 30. The state is concerned with the risk to reoffend with the, at least the misdemeanor battery offenses on the defendant's history. So there's a risk to reoffend there, as well as a flight risk with some out-of-state offenses. So the state's concerned with that, as well as just the danger of the community with any time where you have such a large amount of drugs on the defendant's possession, as stated, any more than 4 grams of that fentanyl would be trafficking amount, and the same for the methamphetamine over 28. So there is a concern with that large quantity of drugs rather found the defendant is charged with possession of. So state's concerned with the danger of the community. So I would ask for no less than 30. For the conditions to remain the same, that he stay away from La Quinta Hotel at 575 Holcomb Bridge, and no contact at all with Asalma Greenwich. And that would be the state's recommendation, Your Honor.
all right. No drugs unless prescribed, no alcohol, no weapons. You can have an ankle monitor paid for by the county with a 24-hour curfew, court, lawyer, medical. As long as you supply, you got to supply an address upon release of where you'll be living. Let's see. And work, if you can find work, as long as you supply the name of your employer, proof of employment, schedule, and the exact location you'll be working. And stay away from 575 Holcomb Bridge Road. No further contact with ASALMA Greenwich, GRINNAGE. So it'd be 20,000, 19,000, 1,000, and drug-related objects is UJR jail. 20,000, 9,000, 1,000, and UJR jail. Best of luck to you, sir.
No problem.